Philosophers and theologians have been arguing over one big idea for centuries. What is our obsession with what some people might call free will? The world's biggest change agents and artists, it seems like for them their lives were easy. Pick the one thing and excel at it. I'm not saying that these people didn't have hard lives, but it certainly feels easier to know you're walking in your purpose rather than bumbling around aimlessly.
It is a long journey to this moment.
This topic deeply fascinates me because I'm afraid of making the wrong decision when it feels like I don't have a proper, clear understanding of what the right decision looks like. Lately, it seems like we're bombarded with images of a multiverse, a place where infinite possibilities can happen. I've always said I wish that I could split myself up into two different people. But what I'm really saying is I wish I felt free to pursue whatever it is I really want to pursue. Right now, my academic and my creative self are warring with each other, and I want to find a way to exist in peace. I've been looking for a formula to find a clear answer for my life. If I am going to spend my life doing something, I want to experience some joy while I do that. And in the 21st century, there's never been a wider range of options to choose from. I feel like this is the scariest part of my life so far. Every day feels like one step closer to a mediocre life, and a life where I feel horribly unfulfilled. I have no idea where my will stops and a supernatural will begins. At the end of the day, I want to be a good person, a happy person, someone who's content with the decisions that they make. I took a trip up to Massachusetts to learn from some people who are really important to me. I have to know, can I truly pick the life that I want? This is Worcester, Massachusetts, the second largest city in New England. Yes, Worcester. This word is pronounced Worcester. The English language does not make sense. Moving on. I wouldn't have really known this place existed, nor known how to pronounce it if I wasn't dating my girlfriend Natalia. While I was visiting, I also challenged her mother at Connect 4, a game where any decision could be deadly. And she beat me. By a lot.
Either one leave. Alright. It's time to get serious.
Natalia's mom always encouraged her to be a creative person, so I asked Nat if there was something she felt like she was ever supposed to do.
You're playing the game of life. They're literally like, it's showing you visually how you can get to the same destination by taking several different paths. I don't think that there's a path that you're supposed to take. I think that with the skills, our personalities, our interests, the people that we meet, I think that they help shape us as we go. And whatever path we end up taking, I don't think it's necessarily as simple as like good and bad or supposed to and not supposed to. I think there's maybe a lot of coulds and a lot of maybe shouldn'ts. And you can take any of the coulds and live a life full of contentment and excitement and fulfillment. I don't think that there's one singular, like you have to do this. This was something that was predestined for you to do. I think it could feel that way depending on like if we have religious families or if we believe in like predestination. But I think that every single person has an infinite amount of possibility and potential, and we just have a certain group of skills and traits and people in our lives that really help shape the paths that we're allotted in life.
I do have a religious background, so naturally this is where I've started my search for clarity on this subject. But a problem is that Christian people like to express things in God language and biblical language. Maybe you've heard a few of these. God knew you before you were thought of. God doesn't give you a spirit of fear. God has prepared you for such a time as this. But oftentimes this language feels vague and confusing. God's will feels inaccessible to me. It's something that too often feels like trying to rub a magic lamp to find my ultimate wish and journey for this life. Religious texts give us heroes and others to look up to be a part of a great community of believers. There's giant slayers, prophets, kings, queens, and judges, but we don't really talk about the regular people. I'm a regular person who feels like if I make the wrong decision, then everything will go downhill, and I'm afraid to fail. Because of the way that I've been influenced by Christian beliefs, this idea tinkers a little bit close to predestination, the idea that there are certain things that God predetermines will happen in our lives. And for me, in my case, that's not something I'm looking for. But simultaneously, I'm afraid that if I pick something and it's not within the parameters that people that I've assigned value to say is something that I'm good at, does this mean that I'm shunning God's will for my life? Am I inherently working against God's will? God to me is a supernatural being that I'm meant to have a close relationship with. In this relationship, He has given me talents and abilities to do things that are larger than myself. And in the past, I felt like I've used many of those gifts to do some of those very things. But now, as a young adult with the world completely open, I'm scared that focusing on certain gifts instead of others will put me in jeopardy with this God whom I've been taught is good and wants the best for me. I'm afraid that my focus on any creative thing that brings me joy is in fact something I shouldn't spend time with at all. For my entire life, I felt like I was predestined to teach because that's what everybody else was doing in my family. As I've started to become more curious and creative, I've realized that I really want something more non-traditional, but I'm really afraid of launching that journey. What stops me from making anything, contributing to anything larger than myself, is my own fear that once I start, it could actually take off, or worse, I fail and everyone in my life says, "I told you so."
The answer to the question everybody wants to know. LeBron, what's your decision?
LeBron's choice to join a certain team when he was in his mid-20s brought on a ton of hate.
And we've supported him for 7 years now. And for him to go on there and drag us through the mud for 7 years and stab us in the heart, he deserves everything he gets. I hope he never wins anything in Miami. He is dead to me.
I was a 14-year-old kid watching this person who inspired me be demonized in the media. And while his infamous decision didn't age well, it ushered in an era of empowerment for players who hadn't yet found a way to make free agency, the power of choice, a bargaining chip. But to us normal people, big and small choices are a part of the ebbs and flows of life. I've anxiously sat in one place for so long and asked myself, what if I make the wrong decision? When I think about the next 20-something years, I hope that they're not empty or full of nothingness and wastefulness. But there's some real fear about decisions that could be monumental, like going to school for an advanced degree, or proposing to your partner after a couple of years, or deciding to pursue a career in mobilizing others. I'm inspired by the great women and men of history, but sometimes I worry that while I stand up for what I believe in, that means I'm trading away a life with peaceful memories of my partner, my friends, and fostering my creativity in new ways. In his autopsy report, they say that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had an enlarged heart, the size of a man nearly twice his age. He was an unlikely sort of hero. There's a reason why we celebrate him and the great mobilizers and others who don't get enough attention.
Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will.
Dr. King and so many others made decisions because they were informed by what they felt like was God's calling on their lives, even if it cost them their individual lives. But I think that's a major idea. Sometimes we live our lives so individually that we seldom think about the fact that we're only one small piece of the collective, not the whole thing. It's okay to not be a main character when you're supporting the main cause. So I've been learning to let go. I'm not LeBron James. I don't have a chosen one tattoo literally on my back right now. But even then, I'm really scared of sacrifice, and I become afraid that if I select anything to do at this point, then I'm locking myself into something for the rest of my life. And honestly, graduate school makes me feel like that a lot of the time. I thought I would ask someone who's living a life they wanted to create, so while she was visiting New England, I had a conversation with Elena. She's a really amazing designer who's worked for a ton of brands, but most of all, she's my friend.
That's true.
So, Aletta, would you tell me, like, did you always feel like you'd be a designer? Like, is that the thing that you woke up with every single day?
Ooh, I would say no. I'm looking at you.
Yeah.
Do you want me to start over? I don't think I've fully found what it is that I'm like super duper like this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. But I think there's some beauty in like just like the creative field in general. Is that like I know I'm in the right area. I just don't know what exactly it is within this area that it's like, oh, this brings me the most joy. Like, I love to design, but I think I know I don't want to be on a computer for like however many hours a day and that just be it. Like, I would love to like interact with people more and have more of like just like a personal connection with people and feel like I'm actually designing or doing things like for a purpose that matter, and it's not just like these elusive faces of a company that I don't like fully know the people. And so I don't know what that looks like exactly. Maybe it's like art direction or creative direction, and I feel like I've like had a little taste of it in my job, so I'm like, okay, I think I'm headed in the right direction. I just haven't found it, what exactly it is yet. But I think there's also like beauty in that and not like having it figured out, and keeps the mystery alive. And I don't know. I mean, like, I'm hopeful for what there is to come. So I don't have it figured out, but I'm hopeful. Yeah.
I haven't fully given myself the permission to start my dream projects. It's easier to live in my fantasy world instead. And I think that's a major part of my problem. I've been so in my head about choices and decisions that I actually haven't been as productive as I should be in making some dreams a reality. I don't think I'll ever know if I'm making a correct or perfect decision. And I think that humans since the beginning of time have struggled with two different philosophies. That all of our decisions are either possibly impactful or that all of our decisions just don't matter at all in the long scheme of things. I've decided to go with a decision based in faith of the supernatural and the possibility that maybe what I do does matter to not just me, but the collective cause as a whole. But I think this is something I'll always struggle with because it's simultaneously so scary to live in a world where we never do anything because we overanalyze our every move. I found that it's completely possible to be strongly interested in something for now and be interested in something else completely new years down the road. I think I'm also realizing that there is no separation between the worlds, the creative and the academic. I'm me. I'm multiple things at once. No one is just one thing. There's no on switch and no off switch for inspiration and creation. It's just not how humans work, and I think that there's peace in that. The best way I know how to make peace with what I do is to stop overthinking my destiny and just live my life. Stop asking for everyone's permission. Stop hoping for the future. Just surrender your plans. Do the thing.